Do they know how to do it? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for my class, Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. This is part of a 5-part series. We actually started it last Saturday morning at 7 a.m. As a webinar, and a bunch of people reached out to me because they wanted to rewatch the program. So I'm doing the same exact class from last Saturday. So if you're watching the live version on YouTube today, feel free to type in any questions and we'll answer your questions throughout the program. This is going to run for about 1 hour and I'm going to dig right in. So first of all, I want to talk about why I put the program together. One of the big reasons that I put this class together is that as real estate agents, we spend so much time this time of year focusing on our business plans and figuring out what can we do this year to be better than next year. And oftentimes what those business plans create is we say, okay, in order to do more business, I need to do more marketing. I need to get a better CRM system. I need to go buy lead programs, etc. And so you do all those things, and then a year later you look at it and you say, wow, I did basically the same amount of business I did the year before. In fact, in our business, in most businesses, the law of inertia sets in our business and our lives, and that you end up staying pretty stuck. So for example, for most real estate agents, if you are earning $50,000 a year in gross revenue, you're always going to be a $50,000 a year earner. If you're earning $100,000 a year, you're going to always be pretty much a $100,000 a year earner. Does that mean you can't break out of it? No, totally possible to break out of your earning capabilities, and it's totally possible to break out of any rut that you are in life. In fact, we have examples within our own company of agents that were consistent, like $60,000 or $70,000 a year earners who today are earning $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year consistently. So what causes somebody to have that type of breakthrough in their business? And what I will say is that 100% of the time it comes down to a shift in their mindset and a shift in their thinking. So as you're preparing to reach a new goal for the new year, I want you to consider that first you have to become a new person inside your being. The person who you are or who you were for the last 12 months, if you want to break out of your rut and get to something new, a new level in your business and life, you have to become a new person. So all of that starts in your head. So today I'm going to talk about a bunch of books. All of the program, the whole 5-week program was put together by compiling information from several books, which I'll share throughout the program. As well, it was compiled by going out and talking to those agents or those people that have massive breakthroughs to figure out what is different in their business or life from where they were stuck before. So I spend a great deal of today's program talking about the mechanics of why this is, like what we have to do and why we have to do it, and the laws of the quantum universe and how our brains work, etc. I'm going to talk a lot about the how. Many people don't care about the how, and I'll tell you, when I first used the law of attraction and manifesting, I didn't understand how it worked at all. I just read books and I knew that it was possible, that I could manifest anything into my business and life. So I started practicing the concepts of manifestation and using the law of attraction without understanding exactly how it works. But there are, on the other hand, those people that say, I'm not trying any of that until you explain to me exactly why this works. So that's why I spend a great deal of today's program specifically talking about how it works. So we're going to talk about how and why this all happens, And through the 5-week course, we're going to kind of evolve over time into a point that you can practice what we're going to talk about today to become a new you, because you will always live up to who you are in your own head. So we got to start with your self-image, and we're going to move through. We're going to talk about on the later classes techniques that you can use to manifest the life that you want to create. What I want you to walk away with throughout this program is that where you are today is a result of the thoughts you've had in your head up until now. Your thoughts have consequences so great that they create your reality. The stories of your mind become the stories of your life. So where you sit right now in your business and your life, that is a byproduct of the thoughts you have had for all the way up until today. Who's the one person we talk to all day, every day? It is ourselves in our own heads. And what happens, these conversations manifest into the life we live. And so many people in the world believe that they are kind of on this bus, that let's see where life takes us. And what if I could tell you that you can decide where the bus is going? So instead of just being a passenger in your own life saying, oh, I hope it takes me here, or let's see where it takes me, say, no, this is where the bus is going. This is what I see for myself, and this is what I'm going to create. So the consequence of this class is that you will learn to become a co-creator for your life. You're not going to sit back and see where life takes you. You're going to create the life that you want. So I always start this part of the program talking about Isaac Newton, because Isaac Newton, who was like a scientist and a philosopher, he came up very early on and created some laws that created this mindset in the world that things are either solid or there's energy. So he created this whole theory that there's two types of things in the world. There are all these things like the desk or the wall or a human being, and all these things are solid things made up of atoms that are solid. And then on the other hand, there's energy. And energy can, with force, move something that is solid. But what we will see is that over a span of several hundred years, what we soon ended up learning is that atoms weren't as solid as Isaac Newton thought they were. In fact, what we learn over time is that atoms are not really solid, and really all these things you look at, including human beings, are not as solid as we originally thought. We are all made up of energy. In fact, energy is the very fabric of all things material. So the table that I'm at right now, this is really mostly made up of energy. And the other thing that we learned over time is that atoms are made up mostly of energy, like subatomic particles. They're not as solid as we originally thought in the days of Newton. But we also learned throughout the 200 years after Newton is that not only are most things made up mostly of energy, but we also learned that this energy is responsive to the mind. 200 years after Newton, we had Albert Einstein came along, and Albert Einstein realized that everything is energy. He said that's all there really is to it. Everything around us is energy. And if you can match the frequency of the reality you want to the energy you're trying to create, you can attract anything into your life. He says it's a universal law. It is not a philosophy. He said this is what physics is all about, that if you can match the energy of what you're trying to attract, then you are going to attract that item or thing or that experience into your life. So on the slide here, you'll see the old school idea of what an atom was made up of, and then the new school idea of what an atom is made up of. So the old school was the Newtonian theory that atoms are mostly like these particles or solid pieces. And then the new school, moving into what Albert Einstein talked about, is that the atom is mostly just all little pieces of subatomic particles. They're like all this energy of potential in the atom. Now, everything in the physical universe is made up of these atoms, which are made up of subatomic particles. And these particles, when they exist as pure potential. So when they exist as pure potential, what I want you to think about is that they are in this wave. So it's like a wave that exists, and that is pure potential. They are potentially everything and nothing until they are observed. So all around us is all this energy, and that energy is nothing until there's actually an observer of the energy. What Einstein talked about is that by bringing in an observer, it is possible to collapse those waves into a particle, which is a localized space-time event. So he said, first of all, everything around us in physical reality exists as pure potential, and then this outside observer can come in, use the power of their mind to collapse those particles and organize a vast number of subatomic waves of probability into a desired physical event called an experience. So think about that, especially if you are one of those people that believed that you are this person that is sitting on a bus waiting to see where life takes you. Think about it, because really what you are is you are energy that has the ability to move and manipulate energy in the world to get whatever you want. Any experience or any life that you want, you are capable of creating using your mind. So, like clay, the energy of infinite possibilities is shaped by consciousness. So what makes us different than animals is that we have this consciousness that allows us to manipulate the energy around us to create the things that we want in the world. So if all matter is made of energy, it makes sense that consciousness, our mind, and energy, the matter, are so related that they are actually one. So you are powerful enough to influence matter because at the most elementary level, you are basically just energy with a consciousness. So unlike animals, you have the ability as energy to use your consciousness to manipulate or change or direct energy in a certain direction to get whatever you want in life, whether it be money or prestige or a new house or anything you want, anything you can think about, anything that is you can think about in your own head is possible for you. So this is a very basic piece of it. In a future class, we're going to talk about your self-image and some of the work of Maxwell Maltz, who wrote Psycho-Cybernetics, because typically what limits you is what you believe is possible for you, which is derived from your self-image. So in Maxwell Maltz's book, and also a great book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza, both of those writers, philosophers, thinkers, they talk about the fact that you will always live up to the self-image you've created in your own head. Not only that, studies have shown that for the most part, our self-images are totally developed by like our mid-30s. So by your mid-30s, you have a perception of who you are and what is possible for you in your own head. And most people, that perception will never change unless you take a class like this and say, wow, if I change my perception of who I am, it is possible for me to achieve more than I originally thought I could achieve. So going back to the idea of energy. So is it possible to simply think about something and it will manifest? So in other words, I want to manifest a lot of money or a new car or a new house. Is it that if I just think about that, it's going to manifest? No, because there's another piece that goes to the entire equation. What you think about and what you can direct your emotion towards will create the results. So if you simply think about something and you have no emotion towards that thing that you're thinking about, you will get nowhere with it. There's a couple great books that I reference. One is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. In this book, they share a story, or an experiment, I should say, where there was a group of healers. So they were doing a scientific experiment, and what they wanted to see is it possible that directed intention, like thoughts and feelings together would be an intention. Is it possible that a human being could unwind DNA by using intention, their thoughts and feelings? So what they did is they had a group of healers, and they gave all of these healers a test tube with DNA in each of the test tubes. And the healers had to sit in a room and hold these test tubes, and they were instructed solely just to think about the DNA and just to think about unwinding the DNA. The second set of healers, they did the same exact thing, but they gave them different instructions. For the second group of healers, they said, hold on to these test tubes of DNA, and we want you to think about changing the chemistry, like changing the DNA, unwinding the DNA, so changing the cellular structure. But while you're doing it, you have to put pure emotion into it. Like you have to feel love for the cells or the DNA that you're doing. So they did the two different groups. And the first group of healers holding the DNA, where they had no emotion involved, all they were doing was thinking about the DNA. The first group, there was 0 results. So they tested the DNA before and after the experiment, and there was no change in the DNA. The other group of healers, the ones that put love into their thoughts, while they were directing their thoughts, they were also directing their emotions. For that second group, though, that group unwound like 25% of the DNA. So think about that, because that is pretty powerful information. Especially, sometimes what you want in life is not to make millions of dollars or to have this amazing job or to attract a house. Sometimes you don't want to attract things. You just want to attract good health. And there are stories all around the world of people who have cured themselves from deadly diseases, and this is how it happens. So it is putting intention into changing your DNA. So using this, you can attract anything, including better health, better life, better job, etc. So it is a byproduct of thoughts plus feelings will equal the results that you want in life. So when we have negative emotions like anger or fear, our heart rhythms become erratic and disorganized. In contrast, positive emotions like love and joy produce highly ordered, coherent patterns that we can control. So the reason that all of this is very important is that if you are in a state of anger or hurt or sadness, it is our subconscious. So regardless of whether you believe in what I'm talking about or not, our subconscious mind is always doing this. It is on autopilot. In fact, the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, the reason he named it Psycho-Cybernetics is because He's like, there's this piece of us that operates regardless of whether we want it to or not. So on the back end, in your unconsciousness, you are attracting through your thoughts and emotions, whether you believe any of this or not, it's happening in your life. So the reason it's so important is because if you're holding on to anger or sadness or anything, that is what you are transmitting out into the world, and you will attract more of that into your life. So what we're going to talk about is kind of concentrating on the good things, dumping all the stuff that does not serve you, so that you are not transmitting into the quantum universe negative stuff, because the more negative stuff that you transmit out there, the more of it you will create in your own life. You'll attract more of it. Another great book, by the way, is The Intention Experiment. It's by Lynn McTaggart. This particular book is for those people that if you can't buy into something without really understanding how the mechanics of it work on the back end. Like I said, when I first started practicing the law of manifestation, and I will tell you, I've manifested crazy stuff into my life. What I talked about on the webinar on Saturday morning is, and these are just a few, I have hundreds of examples of crazy things that have been manifested in my life. And one of them that I talked about was that a few years ago, many of you know that for the last 10 years or so, I am passionate about going out and interviewing people who are like world changers, people who've gone as far as possible in their careers, like people who've done awesome things, because I love learning from people. And I feel like the real estate business is kind of my scientific lab where I get to go out and interview people, the coolest people in the world. Then I take little pieces of what I learned from them and I bring it back into my real estate business. So a few years ago, 2 years ago, I put on my vision board, and we'll talk about vision boards as well throughout the 5-week program. But I put on my vision board that I wanted to meet Virgin. What's it? I just lost his name. Richard Branson. I put on my vision board, I wanted to meet Richard Branson because he's like the ultimate of entrepreneurs. He owns hundreds of businesses. So I wanted to meet Richard Branson. I'd love to interview him and learn from him. And so I put it on my vision board. Now, what I want you to think about is I have no possible connection that I knew of meeting Richard Branson. So I put it on my vision board because this is important. Like the laws of the universe are working for you regardless of whether you think so or not. So I put it on my vision board, and when you have a vision board, like the universe works on the things that you want and are important to you. So I put it on my vision board, and at the beginning of the year, and throughout the year I just went about doing my daily thing, doing the stuff I loved. And one day I got an interview with a girl who since has become a great friend, Shannon Dickerson, and I was interviewing her as a female entrepreneur, and I was asking her about turning points in her career or life. She also practices the law of attraction and understands the powers of the quantum universe. And when I was interviewing her, I said, when did you know that all of this really works? And she said, I knew it because I always wanted to work for Richard Branson. And so I put it out to the universe that I wanted to work for Richard Branson. And I ended up getting a job working for Richard Branson. And I said, oh my God, I said, that's my dream, is to interview Richard Branson. And she said, oh, I can help you with that. And she invited me to a party a month later on Necker Island with Richard Branson. So you don't have to necessarily try to control or figure out how any of this is going to happen. And in fact, that's where we fail a lot of times, trying to control it or telling ourselves it's not possible. Saying, you know what, I'm not going to even put it on my vision board because how am I going to meet Richard Branson? I don't know anybody that knows Richard Branson. So you got to let go of all that. All I want you to walk away with right now is that your thoughts and couples with the emotions that you have. Your thoughts and emotions attract everything that you have in your life today. So if you're not 100% happy with where you sit right now in your life, then you need to not go out and buy another Zillow lead program, not go out and create a new CRM system. What you have to do is work on internally creating better thoughts and feelings so that you can be the driver of the bus in your business and life. So how we think and how we feel, they produce a state of being which generates an electromagnetic signature that influences every atom in our world. So think about that. The thoughts we have and the emotions that we tie to it create this magnet. And that magnet is going to start attracting the stuff that is on the same vibration as what we're thinking about. So if you are having negative thoughts, then what you attract is not going to be good, especially if your negative thoughts are tied to negative emotions, then whatever you attract is not going to be good in your life. So I want to challenge you that if you've been attracting some negative stuff in your life, I want you to sit back and really look at what is it that you are broadcasting to the world. Your thoughts and feelings are always broadcasting consciously or unconsciously to the world, whether you want to or not. So everything in the universe, all potential exists as an electromagnetic signature. There are an infinite number of potential electromagnetic signatures for genius, for wealth, for freedom, for health. These all exist, plus millions of others, as a frequency of energy. By changing your state of being, which matches the potential in the quantum field, it is possible that you will attract that possibility. It is the law of attraction. So if you're finding yourself stuck, I want you to think about your routines, your known thoughts, all of your typical feelings. All of those perpetuate the same state of being, which creates the same behaviors, which creates the same reality. If you want to change your reality, you need to change the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you act in new ways. In order to change our reality, we have to change our personality even. We must be different in the way that we respond to experiences around us. We have to become someone else. If you want different results in your business and life, you have to become someone different than that old person that responded that way. We have to create a new state of mind. We have to observe a new outcome with our new mind. To create a new outcome, you have to break the habit of being yourself. And you have to learn how to reinvent, how to create a new you, a new self, and it all starts in your head with those thoughts and feelings. Then you have to align your thoughts and feelings with the actions that you take on the outside world. Quantum creating only works when your thoughts and feelings are aligned. So it just goes back to like your thoughts, your feelings, your actions all have to be in alignment for you to start co-creating some of the stuff that you want in the world. Best way I can explain that is that for me to meet Richard Branson, like that possibility always existed. Like literally every possibility exists as pure potential all around us. So whatever you want in the world, that potential currently exists. It is like at your fingertips. The potential for you to get and have or be anything exists at your fingertips. So the potential for me to meet and interview Richard Branson always existed. But a bunch of things had to happen for me to attract that into my life. So first of all, I had to know in my own head that I was probably going to meet him. I didn't worry that the law of attraction wouldn't work for any reason. Like I thought in my head, I know because I put it on my vision board, I'm probably going to end up meeting Richard Branson. So I knew that it was possible. I had to keep doing the things that would bring me closer to Richard Branson. And for me, that meant just going out and still doing my interviews, like still getting in front of cool entrepreneurs. if you interview enough really cool entrepreneurs, can't help but trip over Richard Branson eventually. So I kept going out. So my thoughts were that I was probably going to meet Richard Branson. My emotions were that I was passionate about it, like I really cared about it. And my actions were that I was going to keep doing the little things to potentially attract him into my universe. I want to talk for a minute about money. First of all, money is energy as well. Everything in the world is energy, but money specifically is energy. And I want to talk about it because I can't tell you the number of times I talk to people and they say, I always think positive about money and I'm still poor. So what I want you to know is that you may want wealth and you may think wealthy thoughts, but if you feel like you are poor, you're not going to attract financial abundance. So if you just have this feeling that you are poor, you're definitely never going to attract it. Even if you have positive thoughts about making money and collecting money, your thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body. If the two are not aligned, the energy field will not respond in any consistent way. So of all the things in the world, I think money is one of the places where people have this weird relationship with money. Like you might have guilt for making a lot of money, or sometimes I want you to think about this, because I've seen this so many times with people where they say, I have positive thoughts all the time about money. Like I'm so positive and I think wealthy thoughts and I envision myself winning the lottery and I have a really good relationship with my thoughts when it comes to money. Yeah, when you say to them, hey, do you want to go to the movies Friday night? They say, no, I can't afford it. First of all, that what they just said is how they really feel about money. So they're not having a positive relationship with money if it ever comes out of their mouth that they can't afford something. Or they say, oh no, I'm definitely cool with money. I know that money is abundant in my life, and then they're clipping coupons to go grocery shopping. You have to be very careful about the thoughts that you have about money. And at the end of the day, oftentimes when we say we can't afford something, we're attracting more of that. First of all, that whole mindset of being unable to afford something, you will attract more inability to afford stuff just with that mindset in the back of your head. So what I want you to remind yourself is almost always you can afford it. You might choose not to want something. So could I choose, if somebody asks you like, hey, do you want to go to the movies Friday night? Instead of having like the automatic response, I can't afford it, just think about it and say, yeah, I could probably go to the movies Friday night, but I choose to do other things with my money right now, so I'm not interested in attending the movie Friday. But be super careful, and I want you to recognize it as a warning sign in your own self when you say you can't afford things. Because at the end of the day, you can probably have most things that you're saying that you can't afford. So be super careful with that. Also, I will tell you, and I shared this in the webinar on Saturday that I shared in my book Reach, that many years ago, so as a kid, when I was in my 20s, I had built a very lucrative career in the mortgage industry. So I was a kid that was in my 20s making over $500,000 a year in income. I owned multiple houses. I built a new house, and I had a house at the beach. I had multiple sports cars. Literally, I would match my sports car to my shoes in the morning. But I had this weird thought process in my head that I would always tell myself that because I came from nothing, I'd be okay with nothing. So I'd constantly tell myself, even though I had all these awesome things in my life, I'd always say, yeah, but I came from nothing, I'd be okay with nothing. In other words, I was always preparing myself to lose it all. Now, a couple things. What I think I was trying to do is, number one, I couldn't believe that I had so much success at a young age that I was totally mentally preparing myself to lose it all, which is not good because I eventually attracted that. But also I was trying to remind myself that the things I care about in the world, like I love a sunset, I love good, like strong relationships and close friendships. Like those are the things that matter more to me than like buying a nice car or a nice house. So I was trying to remind myself that. But the way I mentally programmed myself, eventually by 30 years old, I lost almost everything. I did not have to file bankruptcy, but I came close to it. I sold everything I had just so I could keep my real estate business when I was about 30 years old. So the reason I share all that is because all of that comes from like a weird, if you grew up with very little money, then for the rest of your life, it's going to be something that you need to work on, especially if you want to attract abundance in your life. What I believe now, 46 years old, is that of all the things in the world that are abundant, of all the things that are easy to get in the world, money is probably the easiest. Money is all around us, trillions of dollars all around us exists as pure potential. I also always tell myself I am a billionaire in the making, and I have a more comfortable relationship with money because I understand for me that first of all, I'm grateful for every dime I have, but also for me, I definitely understand that because money is energy, that the more that I have, the more good that I can do in the world, the more impact that I can have in the world. So you got to get past like the guilt, and especially on the money piece of all this. So if you want to create a new and better life for yourself, you want better relationships, you want a better job, you want to make more money, you have to change the way you think and you feel, and you will begin to notice that your external environment will be altered, because your external environment around you is always going to end up matching what's going on inside you. So you got to work there first. To become a quantum creator, you have to hold a clear intention, and the intention is the thought plus the feelings of what you want. Leave the how details to the unpredictable quantum field. Don't worry about how you're going to meet Richard Branson. Don't worry about how you're going to make $1 million. Don't worry about how you're going to get your first $3 million house sale. Let the universe do the work for you. All you have to work on is the internal you, working on those thoughts and feelings. Let the universe orchestrate an event in your life in a way that is just right for you. If you're going to expect anything, expect the unexpected. Surrender, trust, and let go of how the desired event will unfold. This is really hard for us human beings. We want to control everything. And when it comes to quantum creating, you can't control it. You got to let the universe figure out how you're going to get there. But put it out there, put your intention out into the world of what you want and what you expect. By the way, this is really important when it comes to manifesting, that it's not when I'm going to meet Richard Branson. It is that I put it on my vision board. I expect it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. So it's more than hope. And be really careful about your relationship with hope, because it's not hoping and praying something happens. I know if I want something, it's mine. I can have it. The universe is going to create it for me. It is different. The difference I want you to think about is most people think we live in a cause and effect world, that if I cause this, this will happen. Instead, I want you to think about you live in a causing and effect world. That means that you have the ability to cause any effects that you want in life. Start living in gratitude. In the old model of living, in the old way we lived, that old you from last year who you want to change right now, that old person thought that you could only be grateful for the things you currently have. By the way, you should always be grateful for the awesome things you already have. You're totally blessed with everything you have. Any money you have, the house you live in, like you're rich in the eyes of many. But also, you can be so thankful for what you're about to attract. So put that gratitude not only into what's here now, the stuff you can feel and touch, But once you get that quantum creating started, you can be so grateful that, wow, I live in a universe so I know that I'm going to meet Warren Buffett. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't worry about it. I'm so grateful that I live with opportunity, little particles of opportunity that are all around me. And all I have to do is just the broadcasting of my internal message through my consciousness and my intention. All I have to do is adjust and tweak that broadcasting that happens, and I can have literally anything I want in the world. That's not just me, that's you. That's everybody that's listening to this program. Everybody has that ability. In the new model of reality, as quantum creators, we must change something within us, our mind and body, our thoughts and feelings, before we can experience the physical evidence with our senses. So we got to fix it inside before we're going to attract it on the outside. We are energy. We are energy that interacts with other energy. Most people in the world keep their focus on the 0.0001% of reality that is physical, because everything in this life, everything that's around you, is the tiny little piece of like those particles that you can see, but the greatness around you is all this massive energy of pure potential. All the good things will start to happen in your life when you focus on the 99.99% of potential that is around you in the form of energy. If you have thinking, like, why does this bad stuff always happen to me? Like, I keep attracting bad shit into my life. If you have those thoughts, that is Newtonian thinking. That is, like we said, Newton used to think that there were only two types of things in the world. There were things like that you could touch and feel, and then there was energy. If bad things keep happening to you, it's because of that type of thinking, that there's cause and effect in the world instead of causing an effect. So what I can tell you is that the reason bad stuff keeps happening to you, it is because you are causing that stuff to keep happening to you through the thoughts, and specifically the emotions that you are putting towards the thoughts that are creating the bad stuff. Your thoughts and your feelings combined, up until today, have created the life that you have right now. So you have caused whatever bad thing is happening in your life. To influence your reality, your environment, heal your body, or change some event in your future, you have to completely let go of your external world. You have to release your awareness of your body. You have to lose track of time. You have to become pure consciousness. It's the only way to attract stuff is you gotta, and this is so very hard. The reason why we get stuck in a rut is because we want to change who we are as a human being. And in order to break out of a mold of who you were last year and who you've been for the last 10 years, you have to break out of this mold. Yet tomorrow you're going to wake up and your life looks a lot like it did today. Like you have the same toothbrush, you're waking up in the same bed, you have the same spouse, you're in the same house, you have the same ride to work. So it is so hard to do this, but I'm telling you that you have to ignore all of it that is around you, because you're going to start creating the new reality of what your life is in your own head. So you have to kind of ignore what the circumstances are around you in order to start influencing the new reality that you are creating. You have to shift your awareness away from this external environment, the things all around you, and all the things that you identify with. So you have to shift your awareness away from your spouse, your kids, your possessions. You have to shift away from your problems. You have to shift your awareness totally away from the outside world, because focusing on anything in the outside world is not going to create your new reality. So the focus for creating your new life has to be internal, and those thoughts and feelings, because that is the reality. What's going on in your head is what's going to begin to create the new reality. So people say, well, I've been trying to do that, but change hasn't happened yet. I can tell you, if you've been practicing this and you haven't seen the change yet, there's something you're still identifying with out in the outside world. So many people say, like, if I had this, I'd be happy, or if I had more leads, I'd do more business. If I didn't have so many commitments, I would be at that class. And all of that is about you thinking that something outside of you is going to create the happiness or the life you want. And in reality, what we're seeing is 100% of the life you want can be created, but it has to start with your internal self through your thoughts and feelings. Live a life greater than your body. You have to live a life in your own head that's greater than the environment you live in and the time you live in. The universal intelligence wants to provide you with access to everything you want. What opportunities are out there waiting for you? Who are you being in this moment and every other moment? Is your being that way going to attract to you all that you desire? So when I shared this class on Facebook yesterday, I shared a video that I did with Greg Hill, the Hill Man on WAAF. And the reason I wanted to share it with you, because I was having a conversation with him and he told me this story, and I said, because what's interesting is I was talking to Greg about the law of manifestation and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, I don't know that I believe in the law of attraction and manifestation and all that. And this is what a couple of different things I want you to realize is whether you believe it or not, you're doing it. You are manifesting the stuff. Using your thoughts and your emotions, you are manifesting stuff into your life. By taking this class, you're going to learn how to create those thoughts and feelings so you manifest stuff you really want. So I was talking to Greg, and he's like, yeah, I don't know that I'm into the law of attraction and manifesting, blah, blah, blah. Well, later on, I'm chatting with him, and I said, hey, by the way, how did you even decide you were going to be a DJ? So he's been on the air now on AAF for 29 years. He's like got this track record of massive success with millions of followers. And I said, how'd you even do that anyways? And he's like, oh, funny story. Like, I decided when I was like in 5th or 6th grade that I wanted to be a DJ. And I was just passionate about being a DJ. And he's like, and I asked my parents for the holidays to buy me a DJ set. And I set up a DJ booth in my garage. And he's like, every day I'd go out to the garage for a few hours and I made pretend I was a DJ and that I had my own radio show. And if my parents wanted me to mow the lawn, etc., I'd say, no, I'm not available from 2 to 5 because I'm going to be in the garage. I got my show, 2 to 5. So every day he'd go out to his garage, pretend he had a show. And this would happen for years and years. In his own head, he had already become the person who he is today. So the reason I share that story is because you have to start living a life greater than your body, your environment, and your time. Greg Hill became the DJ he is today, like 40 plus years ago in his garage at his house. He was living that before it ever manifested. I also say it because you don't have to believe in it. Just like Greg's like, yeah, I don't know that I believe in the law of attraction and manifestation. Yet here he is living proof that it happens, that you can manifest and create whatever you want. So what we know is that the world is mostly energy, that atoms are made up of like these waves of energy. We also know that the human observer, there's proof that a human observer can come in and look at those waves of energy and collapse them into particles. So we have proof that we know human beings as observers can manipulate and change energy. As you continually think about your problems that you have in life, everybody's got problems here and there, consciously or unconsciously, you will only create more of those problems. And here's the hamster wheel that we run on, is that we have problems in our lives. We have money problems, relationship problems, and all day long we're driving around, we're going to appointments, and what are we thinking about? We're thinking about those problems. So we're living a life where all we do is think about the problems that we're living in. And because we spend all of our time thinking about those problems, what we are broadcasting to the world is that we want more of those problems. So the energy keeps attracting more of those problems to us. Most people focus on 3 things in their life: their environment that they live in, or their bodies, or time, but they don't have enough time. They don't just focus on those three elements, they think equal to those things. So to break the chain, you have to think greater than the circumstances of your life, like Greg Hill. Like, he thought about being that DJ long before he became that DJ. You must be greater than the feelings that you have memorized in your body, and you must live in a new line of time. So you have to start living as if you've already created what you want to create. All of us have familiar memories. Your memories related to your known world, such as your favorite coffee shop, your favorite grocery store, your toothbrush. All of those remind you to produce the same experiences over and over. And what that means is that the environment around you right now is actually controlling your mind. So unless you start to believe that and start focusing on your internal world, your outside circumstances will continue to control your life and your mind. You will repeatedly reproduce the same level of mind by reminding yourself who you think you are in reference to the outside world. So your brain right now equals your environment. According to quantum law, which is always working, whether you believe it or not, your past will keep on becoming your future until you do something to make a change. So that's why I started the program off saying, if you are a $50,000 a year producer in real estate, you'll probably always make $50,000 a year unless you change your mindset of who you are, because our past is always reminding us who we are, and we never move beyond that level of thinking. So we have to kind of jump out of that level of thinking to think differently. We have to become someone different. We have to break the habit of being ourselves. What's interesting is that many of us secretly expect something different to show up in our life when we think the same way, perform the same actions, and experience the same emotions every single day. So what I want you to think about is that if you're frustrated that your life has barely changed in the last 5 years, I want you to think about how has your thinking changed in the last 10 years. Because I can tell you, if you have not experienced much change in anything in the last 5 years, that's because you as a human right now think like you did 5 years ago. So if you want to experience a new and better life, you have to think differently than the person who you were yesterday. To change your life, you must stop reproducing the same level of mind that you've had. The quantum model of reality tells us to change our lives, we must fundamentally change the way we think, the way we act, and the way we feel. We must change our state of being. How we think, feel, and behave is in essence our personality, and it is our personal reality. So to create a new personal reality, a new life, we have to create a new personality. We must become someone else. So if you want a different life, you can't be the person who you were with the old life. So I want you to think about new personal reality requires a new personality. So it's all going to start with that internal thinking. I want you to think about the people who did like really great things in the world. Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, Rosa Parks. Like, who were these people to like change the course of time? And there are people like that living today that are changing the course of time. What I can tell you in all of the examples of people who changed the course of time, that they were living in their own head a different reality than what was happening in the world around them. So they were living in their own head a different reality than what was actually happening in the world around them. Because that's what's going to be required of you to break out of this habit of being who you were last week. Big thinkers all have a common thread. They had a dream, they had a vision, they had an objective that was much larger than they were. They all believed in a future destiny that was so real in their minds that they began to live as if that dream were already happening. So all these people that I talked about, they all were able to think beyond their environment. They couldn't see or hear or taste or smell or feel it, but they were so possessed by their dream. all those emotions. When I say possessed, they were so emotional about those dreams that they acted in a way that corresponded to their potential reality ahead of time. They behaved as if what they envisioned was already the reality they were living. The greatest individuals in history were unwaveringly committed to a future destiny without any need for immediate feedback from their environment. Because when you start practicing this stuff, if you put out to the universe you want to meet Richard Branson, you're not going to get an invitation from Richard Branson next week. You have to start practicing it and just believe and know in your gut that this is going to happen for you, whatever that life is. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to unwaveringly believe in it to your core. Expect it's going to happen. Just like these history giants, it didn't matter to them if they didn't receive any sensory feedback or physical evidence of the change they wanted right away. Their minds were ahead of their present environment. Their environment no longer controlled their thinking. All of this is important to note because what I will tell you is you're going to absolutely have naysayers, especially if you start practicing this stuff, especially if you tell people that you're practicing this stuff. You're going to have people that say you're crazy. Every big thinker in the world has had naysayers, and you will too. That's the universe testing you. The universe testing, saying, yeah, you really think you're going to meet Richard Branson? You really think so? The universe is testing to see what you really believe in your core. Most of the people who made huge change in the world were considered foolhardy or even insane, but they ignored the entire outside environment, including the naysayers, and they thought greater than their circumstances. You must always think as if the experience you want has already created. It's already happened. You must mentally rehearse how it's going to happen. The stories of your mind become the stories of your life. So the stories in your mind have to be about the life you believe that you are creating, the life I want you to feel like you've already created that life. And I want you to see pictures of it in your head. If we repeatedly think about something to the exclusion of everything else, we encounter a moment when the thought alone, just the thought alone, becomes the experience. When this occurs, all the neural hardware in you is rewired to reflect the thought as an experience. So your subconscious mind has no idea that it didn't really occur. Because in your own head, your thoughts, your intentions, your emotions were so powerful, your subconscious mind thinks that it already happened. This is the moment that your thinking changes your brain and your mind. And it creates this cycle, this thinking and feeling. By doing that over and over, you install in yourself a new software, a new thinking and feeling software, so that you begin to create through the quantum universe the life that you want to have. Years of thinking certain thoughts and then feelings in the same way, then thinking equal to those feelings. The hamster wheel creates a memorized state of being in which we can emphatically declare our I am statements as absolute. Our thoughts and our feelings have merged. So in other words, those thoughts we have and the feelings we have, those become so ingrained in our identity that that's who we believe we are. This is about everything in our lives. We believe we are the feelings that we have. We're going to spend more time on this in the coming weeks as we spend more time in some of the other books like Psycho-Cybernetics. But what I want you to know, 95% of our life is subconscious. Our lives are just memorized routines like driving to work, going to the grocery store. Most of our lives are memorized routines, even our memorized emotional responses to the past. We keep reliving over and over. To break the habit of being ourselves, we need to start reprogramming the subconscious mind. So that is it. Our 1 hour is up already. A great deal of what I shared today is from this book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. In the next section, this is a 5-week program. It's 5 hours of content that I've put together. Next week, we're going to spend more time on this book, but we're also going to start touching into some of the other great books that I talk about. So Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. Dr. Wayne Dyer, any of his books are great, but he talks about the power of intention in his book. What to say when you talk to yourself. The one person we talk to all day, every day is ourselves. And you got to be super careful about what you're saying to yourself. Like I said earlier, somebody invites you to the movies Friday night and you say, I can't afford it. There's something really powerful going on in the back of your head. So be really careful what you're saying to yourself. Promptings by Cody Bateman. This just talks about the stories of your life, or the stories in your mind become the stories of your life. So how to change the stories you're having in your head so that you can manifest them in your outside world. And then psycho-cybernetics, really good stuff that we're going to spend a couple of classes just covering psycho-cybernetics, because at the end of the day, we all live up to who we believe we are in our own heads. So if you want to become something more than what you used to be, you're going to have to start rewiring your self-conscious and who you are, your self-image from there. So that is it. Thank you for joining me for the broadcast today, and we'll be back on Saturday morning for part 2 of this program, and then next week we'll do a redo of that through our YouTube station. Thank you for joining me.